privacy, which I know may sound a little bit weird because we're at a developer conference and usually the mining world stays pretty separated from the rest of the kind of Bitcoin ecosystem. I think that's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but so part of what we're going to try to do here is see how we can bridge those worlds a little bit. I'm not sure if you guys heard, one interesting kind of piece of news that came out yesterday, I think it was, is that Brains just launched mining pool payouts for Lightning. So that's really exciting to see how that goes. They've launched it in kind of like a private beta. Lisa and I have had many debates about whether mining payouts can actually take place over Lightning. Was talking about it with Jesse from last night. He has a different take, so we'll see how things play out. Definitely a fun popcorn eating moment, so it's going to be exciting. So, in terms of what we're going to go over for this talk, kind of the main theme is really about how Hashrate kind of helps to, or Hashrate payments have very strong privacy guarantees, and how that can be useful in different contexts. But I kind of wanted to start talking a little about the mining centralization problem, because I'm not sure how many people are usually aware of that. It's something that needs to cover. Keeping in mind. And it'll talk a little bit about different use cases for Hashrate outside of, like, strictly speaking, privacy payments. A really great journalist that's been covering mining for a long time now, Wolfie Zhao, came out with a post on Miner Mags, this kind of industry magazine, that was looking at Coinbase rewards being issued from multiple different mining pools to a similar address. From this analysis that he did, you were able to basically see that it seemed as though most of these mining pools were paying royalties to AMP. And there's a few different ways in which that can be coordinated. Outside of the fact that they're obviously just sending funds to get an address, but I guess the question is, why are they doing that, right? And probably the main reason is that we have it in mining, what's called FPPS. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the different payout systems in mining. FPPS stands for full paper share. And basically, I have another slide about it in a little bit, but it has to do with, you take the block reward, you add the transaction fees for that block reward, and you divide that out by like the whole network's like hash rate. That gives you pretty much what the stats per terahash per second per day would be, right? So that's your kind of going market rate for hash rate. So FPPS suffers from this problem, which is that they will pay out from their mining pool, regardless of whether that pool has necessarily found the blocks to backstop, so to speak, those payments, right? So you have a lot of risk as the mining pool that you're just going to run out of funds out to pay people for that hash rate that you like not be valued. So Brains, for example, used to use PPL to pay for a last number of shares. It's like they only pay people out for the blocks that Brains would find. Now, very few people are mining with Brains, and in general, very few miners use PPLNS because we have miners fixed costs, and they pay those costs, and sometimes it varies with how often a smaller pool will find a block, leads to lack of consistent payments, and that can be a problem when you have high electricity costs and you have to cover, right? So what it seems that was happening here with AMP pools is that basically Bitcoin could be financing all these pools. That's one thing, right? They're basically financing all of the BPS rates for these smaller pools that can't really afford to do those consistent payments. That's one. You can also kind of think of this as they're almost like leasing block space, right? That's a little bit more problematic because it doesn't end up being just about financing, but rather the actual kind of block template and block production, where in essence what ends up happening is that all of these other pools that we're looking at here on the left, which totally comprise over 50% of the network, are in essence whitelisted pools or proxies for ample, right? And that's pretty problematic because then all of a sudden we're really just down to like, 3 largish pools. And for lack of put it in a pretty crude way, it's like, just 3 nodes you gotta pull out, right? To try and force people to act in one way or another. So obviously Bitcoin, we care a lot about decentralization and we care about like network security. We spend a lot of money on like network security. But if all of a sudden we have this kind of underlying problem, well, we need to solve this. So here's a little bit. I'll pass over the slides in the Telegram, so if you guys want to look at some of this afterwards, this is just kind of a slide that shows how they track the different addresses that kind of relate back to ample. So here you see ample deposited into this type of scarce, then multisig pull deposited here, and then all these guys sort of kind of joining the train here that links to all these addresses, right? So kind of gives you a little bit the forensics. Okay, so we're going to jump around here a little bit. I apologize if it doesn't seem like the most logical flow. I promise at the end it will kind of come together. So, privacy, right? You use Bitcoin. Let's say you bought Bitcoin from an exchange, or there was some kind of hack, or what have you. The Bitcoin that you have today can be somehow tied to like your real world persona, right? A lot of people have security concerns with respect to this. There are other concerns that have to do with simply the traceability of funds in an open ledger, right? Like in a traditional banking system, you can't all go and track each other's funds, like you can Bitcoin. So a lot of people turn to mixing services, right, as a way to get around these. You have coin joins, you have custodial mixers, now, mixing has kind of been somewhat a problem recently with third parties like Swan, for example. We're really having some Swan's partners not wanting to accept mixed coins. It's obviously a controversial issue, but I can see why people would, looking for privacy might not necessarily want to look for privacy at the expense of mixing their coins with potentially the last resort. Right? It's like, okay, I want privacy, but I don't necessarily want to be mixing all my coins with a bunch of people that I don't really have any accountability for, right? So that can be a little sketchy. Now, part of the problem here is also just that everybody kind of, we talk to people about mixing services, and a lot of times everyone just jumps to thinking about, mixing must be because you're dealing from some kind of like transaction. So I don't usually endorse channels as drafts. Or use this in order to one of the injuries is related to the next slide, which is basically why consent is tracking down on this. But as you can see from this graph, there's actually a lot of different use cases, right, for why people are using mixing services. And the percent of illicit transactions has gone up actually recently. But there's still a huge amount here of other. And look at all the people just coming from centralized exchanges going to mixing services, right? So there's a big problem there. You don't necessarily want your coins to be tied to the place where you bought your Bitcoin from. And how do we kind of get around that problem if we don't want to use mixing service? Well, today, I don't know very many good solutions.
One question. When you say from exchanges, you're actually directly from exchanges to
yeah. So the way this is done is like a typical trade analysis where they go and they find, they've mapped which addresses are going to the mixing service. So the inputs for those like coin joins or whatever it is are coming straight from exchange wallets. So this is like really big news. If you hadn't heard about it, it should be pretty frightening. Which is this whole Section 311 thing from the Patriot Act. So, I'm not but in any case, the idea is that they can pretty much it gives the Treasury sweeping powers to do a bunch of different things, to lock up funds, to target specific actors as they see fit. So you don't have to go for law or anything like that. Basically, it gives the Treasury unilateral kind of powers to act with a lot of force. You can, I'll add the link to this, so if you guys actually want to see exactly how that's all detailed, it's a little bit out of scope here. But basically, one of the things I wanted to highlight here was outside the fact that FinCEN is obviously cracking down on these mixing services, is that FinCEN comes out here and says that, yes, illicit use of mixing services has gone up significantly in the last couple of years. But really, actually, 24% of like mixers were illicit, came from identified illicit wallets, right? Transactions. Now you take the flip side of that and say, okay, well, that means, sure, I'll give you that 24% illicit, that means that 76% of that traffic is legitimate, right? So if we have 76% legitimate privacy use, isn't there a way in which we can try and tease this out a little bit better where we can service legitimate privacy use cases without necessarily bundling that all up together with illegitimate? So this takes us to mindful payments, right? Mindful payments are getting coins that are 1 or 2 hops away, maybe 3, from the Coinbase, right? So they have virtually no history associated with them. Now, like I was mentioning, this full paper share had some problems of how it is that they price basically Coinbase rewards. And right now, we have this nominal kind of market rate, which is just the block reward plus transaction fees divided by the network transfers, right? Now, pools aren't very transparent with how they actually calculate or include transaction fees because you get rewards on a daily basis, and you have no insight into how they're calculating that kind of floating, mempool transaction fee volume, right?
Just to be clear, you're saying they don't calculate it as because the bottom was there's specifically FPPs allowing the whole everything. So why wouldn't it just be all the transaction fees of every block? So
in theory, yes. So the question was in FPPs is supposed to be counting the transaction fees. We can just take all of the block reward, which goes to subsidy plus the transaction fees for the entire day right now. Yes, in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. We just have no visibility. Right? So it's up to the discretion of the pool ultimately to decide exactly how that's going to be used.
right, so it's just I just found it really point is below visibility because you might be able to see whether they're being given
No, you have at the end of the day, you're going to yes, if miners have visibility, you can see the transaction fees being included in their payout. And as a miner, you're paid out. Basically, you have a balance that's updated at the end of every day. And that balance that's updated every day just takes into account the hash rate you delivered and gives you a boosted rate for which you're being paid out.
So your hash rate is a proportion of the total network is how they calculate.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it just seems so obvious that then you would calculate in the same ratio to the transaction fee. It doesn't seem like there should be any ambiguity.
No, I hear you. I think it's another point. So,
Okay,
there's just ambiguity with respect to exactly if all the transaction fees are included in the FPPS rate on a daily basis. We talked about how it's higher risk for pools. Probably one of the largest issues with it is that this needs to have these centralizations around large pools. So part of what this talk is about is basically how do we establish a better mechanism to price shares than the current FPPS system has been around for a long time but clearly suffers from those issues, namely centralization, right? And so there are such a thing as Hashrate marketplaces. And the oldest Hashrate marketplace is NiceHash. And they came out recently with this nice kind of buzzword new paper share system, a real-time paper share reward system, which basically takes opens it up to the market, right? So if we take everybody in this room and we say, hey, I have this amount of hash rate. Who wants to buy some hash rate? You guys all bid on that hash rate and have it delivered to you. The shares would then be calculated based on that bit, right? So it's as if you're going to an exchange, right? It's super fast, bits, and deduce basically a hash price from an open market rate. Now, what's interesting here is that we don't, usually when we're looking at FPPS, like I said before, you're just looking at the block rewards plus the transaction fees divided by the network hash rate, right? Now, are there other kind of positive externalities to hash rate that are basically not priced in that pay-per-share system? That's what this kind of open market is trying to see if we can actually price out, right? So, with respect to like mixing, for example, if like $7 million worth of mixing volume, right? If that volume were to fall over into the mining market, we have something around, I think it's like 5 or 6 billion worth of like mining rewards which are dispersed per month. So there's actually less new Bitcoin that is brought into circulation than there is demand for mixing services, right? So that means that basically we should be able to price in exactly how much that is worth to the larger privacy audience. There are people who are looking for stronger privacy guarantees and perhaps they should be earnings provided today. So now that's privacy, right? There's other potential use cases that you can have in mining. Mining is Hashrate has other use cases or other functions within kind of the security apparatus of Bitcoin outside of the fact that the miners are just getting paid to process those transactions or produce those blocks, right? You have things like tap reactivation, which is a speedy trial, right? And we had during speedy trial, there was a bunch of rules that took a long time to kind of come on board. What if you could, as a participant in the network, buy Hashrate to vote on bit activation, for example? That would be one mechanism which Hashrate has another use case, right? There's an issue which is kind of related to privacy, which is being able to separate cash flows. Right? So if you're a business and you accept Bitcoin, and you have payroll as that business, right? Do you necessarily want all of those inflows to your business to then be tied to the payroll that you're paying out to your employees? Probably not. So how do you kind of zero the scale? Right? Well, maybe you would buy some hash rate and pay out from hash rate, for example, right? Or pay yourself to hash rate and pay out to your employees.
Question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned people like paying hash rate and getting the coin rates as quote unquote clean coins, right? So how am I going to pay for that hash rate if I'm 100% standing on Bitcoin with dirty coins?
Yeah.
So someone needs to pay for the thing.
Right, yeah. We're about to get to the last use case that I think is probably the most interesting has to do with like SV2 or Stratum 2. Right now we run all our SVs on Stratum 1, and there's new reference implementation coming out on Stratum 2, which has the very great property of no longer relying on the mining pools to construct block templates. So in essence, you're distributing block production to the actual mining agents rather than at the pool level. That has great properties for decentralization, censorship resistance, and mining. And you can kind of imagine a world in which you have various different block template policies, for example, that people are constructing for a variety of reasons. That perhaps, I was talking with Jesse and I also was like, oh, well, I have all this like Lightning funds on Lightning locked up. I'd love to be able to, basically accelerate those transactions. Like, yeah, you could use something like SV2, you could block template, and you then push and kind of auction in this kind of situation, right? So we'll look a little bit more strategy to another slide. So this is starting to get into your question, how do you pay for this hash rate that you get delivered to you? So the idea here is, well, since we have this limited supply of hash rate and it's concentrated amongst like a few group of large miners, let's put it up for auction. auction. That seems like a decent thing to do when you're trying to do some price discovery and figure out what something's worth. It's a limited resource. And you basically turn around and you ask these kind of different, potentially interested parties, well, like, yeah, well, what is signaling for a bit mean to you? How much privacy worth to you? Creating a quantum, right? And those are things that we should let them, basically let the market decide what are good rates for that, right? Now, if you've been around for a while, you've probably heard of things similar in this vein, within this vein, which is traditionally you've gone online and you've gone to these sites and you're like, oh yeah, I can go buy some Hashrate, or buy like a mining rig, and you send them $2,000 for a new mining rig because it's the 2017 bull market, and all of a sudden you like send them the money, the miner turns on maybe for a day, and poof, it's gone. That's kind of business, right? You send them a bunch of money up front and they have all the power over you, right? So cloud mining is pretty similar. Often you're getting either like price gouge, or you're not necessarily getting all of the hash rate that you bought. And nice hash is like totally new space, and a lot of the respect for that. But like for example, nice hash, I think if they only deliver, or they'll only reimburse you up to 88% of like the hash rate that was delivered. So basically, if the contract that we bought with NiceHash only delivered 92%, you won't get that. You won't get reimbursed 80%. That's missing. You'll only go to 88%. And that's, not the most precise account, right? You should be getting everything paid for. Especially with something where you have a system where you can track the shares and it's so transparent on exactly how much you should be getting based on that share. So this isn't actually a very difficult problem to solve, right? We just use multisig. We use multisig, we put the funds in escrow, we use a proxy server to route the hash rate from the seller to the buyer, where we can view all the stratum messages that are going from the mining rig to the buyer's mining pool account. And we switch between different mining pool accounts, buyer's mining pool accounts, depending on whoever's buying the hash rate for that period of time. And then through the stratum proxy, we can count exactly how many shares, we can do all of the accounting, and then we sign with the seller out of the multisig for exactly how much was delivered. So if you had downtime, it was a storm came through Texas, and all of your mining machines were in Texas, and you only got 80% or 92% or 95 or 98% of your hash rate, then we sign for the 98% to the seller, and then the 2% back to the buyer. And everybody's making the and the other way that we make this transparent to both sides by just making the stratum log available to both ends.
On that last point, am I correct in saying the stratum needs to authenticate, right? Whereas stratum is not possible, so actually that works for that because stratum is authenticate the message. So it's actually like verified.
It's stronger guarantees of strategy, so you can see what strategy you want to see. It's sort of open line, it doesn't have the same. Well, we're basically the man in the middle in that case.
With authentication, no problem.
Exactly. Yeah, you have other kind of IDs and mechanisms that you can use to track shares outside of authentication with SB1. So, one of the interesting kind of positive externalities about trying to sell Hashrate to a wider audience rather than trying to keep it, or keeping it as it is today in these very centralized pub codes with much larger players, is that larger players and mining pools currently don't really have much incentive to switch to strategy 2. They use strategy 1, they probably don't really care much about new blog templates, whereas if we can sell Hashrate to a much larger people and distribute agents that are active within mining, then they can basically push towards pools that enable them to have this functionality that current actors might not be that interested in. So we basically, in effect, get voting power within the security layer, Bitcoin layer 0, the mining network, right? So this could be a very interesting way to try and incentivize mining pools to actually implement this utility. Alright, so we'll look a little bit at the kind of this, how we developed this. So basic ideas, we have a contract between Bitcoiners and buyers here on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. The agreement is pretty straightforward. We say, okay, we'll deliver, call it 100 terahashes for a few hours, or a few days, or n blocks at a time, right? That block is 2016 blocks, roughly 2 weeks. And you can choose exactly how much hash rate you want for how much and for how long. So maybe you want to have a lot of hash rate for like a little bit because you just want to move a lot of funds like very quickly and maybe pay a premium for let's say getting 100 petahash, which is a lot of hash rate. But for like an hour or 2 hours, then you're basically just like zapping and like sats over your way pretty quickly. So this is what I was basically referring to before, that the miners here on the left, according to however much hash rate and for how long this is the contract, route the hash rate through us, which is the third party in this case, our proxy server, which we do all of the accounting, and we reroute the hash rate to different pools, different pool accounts, depending on who the buyer is, right? And then finally we have the settlement component, so buyers place their the purchase amount of hash rate is multisig. And then on the other end, you're getting obviously Bitcoin-based sats to the mining pool, right? So that's delivery and settlement. And then here we have the different situations that I described with respect to the multisig, right? So we observe the terms of the agreement and sign with both parties depending on how the terms were met or not. And yeah, finally you have basically how funds are swept from the mining pool, which is basically the Coinbase transaction belongs to the mining pool, from the mining pool's address, and then gets allocated to your Bitcoin address in the mining pool, and then from there you can take it out to your XPub off outside the mining pool, and basically that's where you get your privacy. So it is worth noting that there is no KYC in this process, right? So you have larger mining pools like Foundry that work with upcodes, they do KYC, but most mining pools do not KYC, and it's not an enforced aspect of mining pools. We'll see if that says that. There's a lot of legal reasons to push back on KYC. So this is just a kind of a graph to show what is the proxy really doing here in this slide. How do we track hash rate? Basically, maybe deep in the weeds of how the stratum protocol works. The way pools figure out how much hash rate you are sending them, they can't go into your machine's firmware and figure out, oh, that this machine is running through this many nonces per second, right? Producing this sort of hashes. Instead, they have to derive how much hash rate you're sending them by negotiating with you a difficulty that basically makes sense to them in terms of how much work they have to send. So I'll try to explain that a little bit. When you start a connection with the pool sends you shares of a certain difficulty level. And if you start sending back solutions to that work, very quickly, then it knows that, okay, I need to ramp up the difficulty because this has more power, more hash rate than the current difficulty being sent. So it ramps up until the pool is getting roughly every 5 to 20 seconds, depending on the mining pool. They kind of vary a little bit on how often we want to get shares back. And then what they do is they calculate, okay, given this difficulty, how much time passes between each share, you can deduce, okay, this machine is hashing at this rate. And here we have the graph of our stratum, of our stratum proxy that's logging all the shares in a given amount of time, and then interpolating exactly what the hash rate is given this variance, right? So that's the other thing with mining. There's so much variance that then you need to basically average that out over time. So also that's by hash rate connected to your mining pool. In the first 15 minutes, your hash rate values are going to be all over the place because there's so much variance in how these shares are being found. And you can see over here, ranging from 0 to like 200, even though the rate at which the machine is running through nonces is stable at the hardware level. It's just that you have to deduce based off of like difficulty and the time it takes to find a share that's underneath the difficulty. It takes time to average that out. Right? So yeah, this is where we are working on our own Hashrate marketplace. So check us out. And any questions?
Do you guys have any?
Sorry?
Do you guys have any code base?
No, we don't have anything on ST2 yet. We would like to see some more work done on the firmware side. I mean, we're basically just now finishing our proxy for V1. The idea is we'd like to be able to do a translator right, from V1 to V2. Sorry?
SRI?
Yeah.
It has a translator.
Right, so we can use the translator for SRI.
So you don't need it for flying.
Right. Oh, no, I guess we wouldn't need to have all of the shares have updated firmware. But we still have exactly how we would like integrate with SC2. Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's like instead of having a mining pool, the question was, is the escrow adding basically more friction for the miner as it then added like it's instead of having a mining pool between you, you have the escrow service. Yeah. And the reason why they end up coming to us instead of running the mining pool is they hope to fetch a premium and make more money off of basically selling the hash rate. Does that make sense? Any other questions?